Once you know who you are and what's important to you, you may find out that you have a wonderful life and you've never acknowledged it. Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Phil podcast. I'm going to make you a promise starting out. You're going to love this one. There's 3 reasons you're going to love it. Number 1, this is all about you. And you may think, well, what makes you think that I'm going to love it just because it's about me? Well, there's a lot of scientific evidence that our favorite subject is ourselves. And you may think, well, that makes us sound conceited. Really not. I'm going to ask you actually during this podcast to be kind of selfish for a little while here. I'm going to tell you why that's not really selfish to focus on yourself in a minute. The truth of the matter is you can't give away what you don't have. So if you don't put yourself at the top of the list, if you don't administer to yourself, if you don't nourish yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then you can wind up emotionally bankrupt and you can't give away what you don't have. When I say that we love ourselves as a topic, there's scientific evidence to prove that. When people are talking about themselves, their interests, the things they care about, the things they love, their brains actually light up more than when they're talking about somebody else. So if we get to talking about us, our amygdala lights up, the nucleus accumbens light up, our pleasure centers and motivation centers light up more than when we're talking about anything else. There's also a lot of social research that looks at conversation dominance. People love to talk about themselves. They love to make self-disclosures and talk about what they're interested in, what they've done, what they've paid attention to. So if you look at what people talk about most in a social situation, we talk about ourselves a lot. And then look at social media. Oh my God. Does it make us look narcissistic? People think they've got a videotape that they're brushing their teeth and publish it like people want to see it. People really don't, but social media has certainly put a lot of emphasis on that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing all the time. I'm just saying that we do like to focus on ourselves, but we do it in a really superficial way. And I'm wanting you to do it, at least for the time we're together right now, in a much more in-depth way. Now, when you do it in an in-depth way, it's going to pay off for you. And I'm going to be telling you why today. I've spent a lot of my life, certainly my professional life, but it really started when I was in middle school. We called it junior high back then, but middle school, studying why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do. Now, I don't care what you do in your life, blue-collar work and construction, sales, or whether you're a professional. If you understand why people do the things they do and don't do the things they don't do, you've got a real leg up on the rest of the world. So trust me, you're going to learn some things today about yourself, about why you do the things you do and don't do the things you don't do. And it's going to give you a lot of power in motivating yourself. And you're going to love that. So that's one of the reasons that I say you're going to love today. The second reason is I'm going to make you smarter. I'm going to make you smarter after you hear what we talk about today than you were before you heard what you talk. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. And I'm going to tell you right now how I'm going to do that. I'm going to convince you to have a positive attitude. And it's not just the power of positive thinking. I'm telling you, when you have a positive attitude, you are smarter. You have better problem-solving skills. You have better creativity. You have better cognitive performance, focus, decision-making. It broadens your perspective. You use more of your brain's potential than when you have a negative attitude. Your decision-making is so much better. You're more resilient if you face obstacles and problems in your life. Now, I'm not saying that you just become Pollyannish and Mr. Optimism, Mrs. Optimism. No, that can actually get you in trouble. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want you to have a positive bias. I just want you to have a positive attitude. I don't want you to be blindly optimistic. That can get you in a lot of trouble. But when you have a positive attitude, the actual structure of your brain can change. The hippocampus can alter, and your memory actually improves. You get, again, smarter. You have much more cognitive power than you did if you don't. And sometimes we pay attention to what we call cynical genius. People that always see problems. You bring something in, the boss says, oh, well, this could go wrong, that could go wrong. You don't see around corners. Let me tell you, there's been a lot of research that the cynical genius that always seems to identify the downside to things, they're not smarter. They just see a snake under every rock. And sometimes that can be useful, but sometimes it's not. You actually can bring more to the situation if you have a positive attitude. I've always had a rule in all the companies that I've run that we love every idea for 15 minutes. We're in a meeting and somebody comes up with an idea. We're going to love that idea for 15 minutes. Let's get excited about it. Let's talk about how it could work. Let's talk about how it could make money. Let's talk about how we could use it to work smarter. So if you have an idea or somebody brings you an idea and you have a positive attitude about it and you say, okay, look, let's love this for 15 minutes. Let's get excited about this for 15 minutes. Let's talk about how it could work for 15 minutes. We can shoot it full of holes after that, but first let's look at it. Let's be open. Let's get excited about it for 15 minutes. Can you imagine what would happen with the divisiveness in this country if everybody loved the other side's ideas for 15 minutes? You might find a pearl of wisdom in there that you could agree on. But we can't do that. Because of identity politics, we think, okay, you're from the wrong colored state, so we got to hate everything you do, everything you think, everything you say, everything you value immediately. First rattle out of the box. Third reason you're going to love this is I'm going to give you the one thing they say you can't get more of. That's wrong. And what is it? Time. I'm going to give you time back. And you know how I'm going to do that? I'm going to convince you to stop multitasking. That's right. Every time you go to a job interview or every time you interview somebody, if you're an employer, they either ask you or you ask them, well, how good are you at multitasking? The answer should be, I don't. They talk about that like it's a positive. It's not. Multitasking is a negative. It's a negative. Because when you multitask, it cuts your IQ down. Because you aren't focused. You aren't cognitively efficient. IQ goes down, errors go up, your presence on whatever you're doing diminishes because you're not fully present on either side. You're less focused, you have longer meetings, and it costs you about 40% of your time. Hear what I just said. 40% of your time you can gain back if you stop multitasking. Cognitive experts estimate that it knocks your IQ down 10 points. And I don't know about you, but I don't have 10 points to spare anymore. But think about it. If you got an IQ of 115, all of a sudden you're 105. You're 105, all of a sudden you're 95. So if you are losing 40% of your productive time and functioning with 10 points less IQ, you're running uphill in the mud, my friend. Stop this multitasking. I promise you, there are always exceptions to rules. There are people who can multitask. Let's just agree that ain't you. Because those people are rare, and there are problems that come along with multitaskers that aren't positives. So you don't want it to be you. So I promise you that it will make you smarter and it will give you time back if you stop multitasking. Now, if you want to know Why that is, I can spend time telling you, but I'll just give you the short version. Certain tasks involve certain neurons in certain parts of the brain. You get into that task, and then somebody comes in and says, hey, can I just get you to help me for 1 minute? And you say, okay. Then you've got to shift out of that part of your brain and out of those neurons and shift into another part of your brain and activate those neurons. Now, it takes time to shut down that part of your brain, shift over to this part of your brain, gear it up to peak efficiency, and deal with it. Then when you go back to what you were doing, it takes time to transition out of that and back over to this and back up. So what you need to do is learn to say, no, actually not. But I'll be done here in about 15 or 20 minutes. If you'll just wait, I'll be happy to help you. But I need to finish what I'm doing right now. Did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? 1 in 2 adults has it. That's a 50-50 chance you are a walking time bomb. But here's the good news. You can take control of your blood pressure naturally without relying on Big Pharma. 120 Life combines delicious super fruit juices proven to help lower blood pressure. Backed by hundreds of doctors and trusted by thousands with real results, it's a solution you can rely on. The best part? It's risk-free. Try it for 2 weeks. If your numbers don't improve, you get your money back. Lower blood pressure or your money back. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. Go to 120life.com. That's 120life.com and use code PHIL, P-H-I-L, to save 15% and get free shipping. This is serious. This is your life we're talking about. 120 Life can help. A healthy life starts with a healthy night's sleep, and Z-Kleiner was designed specifically to promote restful sleep. Studies show 7% of U.S. adults either choose not to or are unable to sleep in a traditional bed. Z-Kleiner offers a superior alternative. The Z-Kleiner is a revolutionary recliner designed by FlexSteel to be both your ultimate relaxation station and making it an ideal bed alternative. The Z-Kleiner is the perfect sleep solution, meticulously engineered with 4 distinct models. Model 1, Model 2, Petite, Model 2, and Model 2 Plus. No matter your size or specific need, there is a Z-Kleiner that's right for you. Z-Kleiner is more than a chair. It's a complete sleep solution. Whether for daily relaxation or as an alternative to a bed, it delivers unmatched comfort, technology, and support. Visit zkleiner.com today to find the perfect model for you. You deserve the Z-Kleiner. Just think about in your own life. How many times have you been writing a report, or you've been writing a letter, or you've been analyzing something at work, and somebody interrupts you, and then you come back to what you got to do? You got to start all over again. You got to start all over again. You lost your place. You lost what you were doing. Where was I? You got to start all over again. Just common sense could tell you that that's not the thing to do. So stop now. I promise you'll be paid off. Now, I could stop now. I said this was going to pay you off. I said you were going to love this because I was going to get you to talk about and focus on you, your favorite topic. I said I was going to make you smarter because I was going to get you to take a positive attitude into situations, which was going to open your mind up, make you open-minded, love everything for 15 minutes. And I was going to give you back time and increase your IQ by getting you to stop multitasking and get you more focused, more efficient. I've done those 3 things. I could stop right now. I've delivered. I've paid you off. But you're worth more than that. So I want to talk about you some more. Now, why am I doing this now? Why now instead of 6 months from now? Well, I'll tell you why. We're in March. Remember those New Year's resolutions you made? You know that most people drop their New Year's resolutions by the second Friday in January. It's called Quitter's Day. Social research shows that by the second Friday of January, most people have dropped their New Year's resolutions. By the end of January, 84% have dropped their New Year's resolutions. And by now, Oh, by now, the time we're in March, ain't nobody left. Everybody's giving it up. Just think about, what were your New Year's resolutions? Well, were you going to go start jogging, get in shape? You're like me, you get those jogging shoes, you put them on the front porch, the damn things just won't jog. You go by them every day, they're still sitting there, they just won't jog. You know why? Because we make these New Year's resolutions when we're all fired up, we're all emotional. But let me tell you, willpower is a myth. Willpower is a myth because it's fueled by emotions, and emotions are fickle. Emotions go up, emotions go down, emotions go up, emotions go down. You're all fired up. Go down to your health club the first week of January. You can't find a parking place within 3 blocks. Go back the first week of February, you park right in the front door. Everybody's there the first few weeks of January. Back first week of February, nobody's there. Because willpower is emotional. So I figure this is a really good time to focus on you. I got nothing against New Year's resolutions. But if you really want to make some serious changes in your life, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, seems like all the hoopla's over, this is a good time to focus on you. And you're worth it. I'm telling you, you're worth it. Now, I do want to get one thing out of the way. One idiom, one metaphor you've heard a million times, the elephant in the room. We've just been through a big election. We've just inaugurated a new president. Half of the country's tickle pink. They got the guy they wanted. Half of them are sitting over in a corner pouting and eating worms. Didn't get their guy in. Since I've been 18 years old, there have been 11 different presidents. And you know what? None of them had much of an impact on my life. Because it's not politics that determine what happens in our lives. It's not politics that determine how society goes. It's culture. That's what determines how a society goes. That's what determines how our life goes. They may have a different tax policy, or they may have some different laws that they pass, but generally speaking, how your life goes is up to you. It's up to you. Now, I'm going to ask you, as we go forward talking about you, to make one big commitment. Love my idea here for 15 minutes. We're going to talk longer than that, but love it for 15 minutes. And what is it I want you to do? I want you to resolve that whatever you do for the rest of this year, I want you to be who you are on purpose. I want you to be who you are on purpose. If we're talking about your work life, we're talking about your career, everybody has an attitude of approach to their work life. They're either gung-ho, go get 'em, or they do the least amount they possibly can and get out of there and get home. Whatever it is, be who you are on purpose, intentionally, select it, and own it. If we're talking about your family life, whatever role you play in your family, mother, father, aunt, uncle, grandfather, grandmother, whatever, son or daughter, brother, sister, be who you are on purpose. See, this is really important to me. That's why I want you to love this idea for 15 minutes. Whoever you are, do it with intention. Do it with purpose and own it. They say, is this who you are? Yes, it is, and I own that. I make no apologies. I'm not a victim here. I'm not pushed into this. I own it. I choose it, and I own it. In order for you to decide who it is you are on purpose, you have to decide the answer to some questions. Now, I'm going to post these on the Dr. Phil podcast website so you can look at them. So if you're walking right now and you don't have a perfect memory, like I don't, I can't remember why I went in the kitchen this morning, but I'm going to tell you these now. But if you're walking right now or you're driving to work or whatever and you can't write these down, I'll have them so you can see them. To be who you are on purpose, you have to think, What do I want? Simple question. What do you want? What's important to you in your life? If you're deciding, who am I? You really have to think about, what is it I want? And it doesn't do any good to mull this over in your mind. You have to write it down. You have to ask yourself, what do I want? What matters to me? And that means you have to make a priority list. And the reason it's important to make a priority list is because at some point I'm going to tell you, you need to have priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if at any time during the day, when you have a choice, you catch yourself not working on priority 1, you need to stop what you're doing and start working on priority 1. So to be who you are on purpose, you have to decide, who do I want to be? And that means mentally, emotionally, professionally, relationally, spiritually, every dimension you can think of. Who am I? Because when you ask somebody, tell me about yourself, the first thing they do is they'll tell you what they do. What's their job? Well, I'm a teacher, or I'm an obstetrician, or I'm a plumber. No, that's what you do. That's not who you are. So when you start talking about, I'm going to be who I am on purpose, who are you? And you have to define that by deciding what you want, what's important to you, what matters. And a way to help you do that is, what is your currency? $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. What lights you up? One of the things we've decided is talking about yourself or focusing on yourself lights you up. Now, that's just a little social thing. And by the way, that's not bad. We're all that way. I hope we care enough about ourselves to find ourselves interesting enough to talk about. But you have to ask yourself, okay, what's my currency? Like, one form of currency is monetary, right? So you get money. That's one currency. And a lot of people are fortunate enough that they love what they do. They get paid for what they do, but they also get emotional currency from what they do. They love their jobs. They get social currency. Their friends are at work. They get pride from what they do. They're proud of their occupation. They're proud of their achievements and their contribution to society. There's monetary currency, emotional currency, social currency. There's philanthropic currency. People love the currency they get from giving back to others, for example. Like I said, there's spiritual currency. We like feeling sometimes that we're having a close walk with God, or that we have fellowship with others in our church or whatever. That fills us up. We like that. Some people get high on achievement. They love to accomplish things and overcome things. Like some people like walking 10,000 steps a day. They go, I got my steps in today. I got 10,000 steps in today. That's an achievement. They like that. So you have all different kinds of currency, and you need to know what it is that pays you off, what makes you feel good inside. Maybe it's helping animals. One of the charities that I love to support is ASPCA. I love animals, and so I don't do it because of the heart-rending commercials on TV about dogs and cats. I just love dogs and cats. I love horses and all kinds of animals. I've always had animals and I love animals. So I get a good feeling when I do things. That's one of the currencies that I have. So you need to identify your currencies. That will help you define who you are. Let me tell you one of the reasons that's important. Because once you know who you are and what's important to you, you may find out that you have a wonderful life and you've never acknowledged it. See, a lot of people don't think about that. They may look and say, wow, when I went through all these questions that Dr. Phil was talking about, I have what I want. I'm not financially rich, but I have wonderful friends and a great family, and the work I do in giving to others or whatever, I'm rich in currencies that I wasn't really putting on the ledger. I'm very not complacent, but satisfied. I'm filled up by what I do. And I would hate for you to go through your life and not recognize what a wonderful life you have if you do. On the other hand, you may look at it and go, wow, there's some big parts of this missing, and nothing I'm doing are going to give me access to those things I want. You know what would be terrible? If you became the best surgeon you could ever imagine, only to find out that wasn't what you wanted to do. It'd be great that you were a great surgeon, but if you found out, you know what? I wanted to be a cello player. I did all of that, and it never filled me up because it wasn't what I wanted to do. You could become the best accountant in the world only to find out you wanted to be a surgeon or you wanted to be a painter, even a house painter. No, I'm not talking about just some big famous artist. I'm talking about a house painter. It would be terrible to chase something all your life only to achieve the highest levels and discover this isn't what I wanted. It's so important that you know what you want so you're not chasing the wrong things. So it's really important that if you're going to be who you are on purpose, which I've asked you to really consider, that you know who that is. If you're going to do something on purpose, you need to decide that that's the right person you want to be, not what your parents expected you to do, not what your spouse expects you to do, not what your generational legacy led you to do, but what you truly want you to be. And that may change across time. I can tell you I never intended to be in the media. I never intended to be a journalist. I never intended to be a television personality. No desire whatsoever. I spent years and years in my profession in some real high-profile situations, and people would come and try to interview me. I never gave a word of interview for like 20 years because I had no desire to be on camera, to be on television, to be on the news, nothing. And then some things happened and that changed, and I got kind of introduced to it, and I discovered that I could impact more people with information by exploring that. I recall the first time I ever gave an interview, about what would come to be the Dr. Phil platform, the Dr. Phil that you know from television. I was asked, all right, what's the show going to be about? And without even any forethought, I just said, well, I'm going to talk about things that matter to people who care. I'm going to deliver common sense, usable information to people's homes every day for free. I said, how could that not work? If you're talking about things that matter to mothers and fathers and husbands and wives and siblings, and it's common sense and it's usable, and you're delivering it for free, how could that not work? And I'd never really thought of it, but when I said it, it resonated with me. I've said people know the truth when they hear it, and when I said that, I knew it was authentic. I wasn't trying to give some interview answer. I wasn't trying to give some television answer. I knew that was me being who I am on purpose. I'd been giving that information to people, but I had a vision of giving it to millions of people at one time. I didn't know how it was all going to take shape or whatever. I didn't feel like I was called by God or something necessarily to do it, although I think he was okay with that. But to me, it just seemed like that's the thing to do. And as I thought about it, it did give me currency. It made me feel like I was making a difference. It made me feel like I was making a contribution. It made me feel like I was leveraging my education and my experience. And I felt good about that application. And I owned that from that interview forward to this very day with Dr. Phil Primetime on Merit TV. I'm still talking about things that matter to people who care. Those things have changed because the world has changed. I'm doing less of just pure family issues, and I'm talking about psychosocial issues and cultural issues because the world has become more sensitized to those things. But I'm still reading all of the emails that come in. I don't read them all, but somebody does, and they categorize them and give them to me, if I'm being entirely honest. I see what people care about, and that's what I talk about. So you have to decide for you. Then what you have to do is you have to set up measurable goals for this year. And by measurable goals, you just can't say, well, I just want to be happy. Well, my dog wants to be happy, but you need to hold yourself to a higher standard, a measurable goal. What is it you want to attain that you can measure? You've got to have some kind of a yardstick so you can measure your progress. And you should never compare yourself to anybody except you, because you don't really know how anybody else is doing. All you know is, where am I compared to last week or last month on the goal I've set for myself? And the biggest mistake you can make is that you got all the time in the world. Now, I'm going to give you more time to work with, but I can't extend your life expectancy infinitely. You can't put it off. The key thing you want to do is recognize that you have to make important choices at times that count. You have to make important choices at times that count. And here's the thing, we're here in March. The rest of this year is going to go by whether you're doing something to improve your life and your family's life or not. We've got another 9 months left in this year. Those 9 months are going to go by whether you're sitting around doing nothing or whether you say, nope, not going to waste these 9 months. I'm going to spend these 9 months making some progress towards known outcomes, things that I want. And trust me, small changes add up to significant results across time. Think about it in terms of losing weight. You lose a pound a week. We may have 40 weeks. I haven't done the math. We may have 40 weeks left in this year. You could be 40 pounds lighter by the end of the year. You save $100 a week. My gosh, think about it. You add all of this up. Small changes add up to significant results across time. But it requires you making important choices at times that count. I had a coach in high school that, I had skill coaches that taught certain things like, blocking and tackling and stuff. But I had a coach that was really important to me. He was more an attitude coach than anything else. He was kind of like a sports psychologist, I guess. He used to look at me right before a game would start, and he wasn't a big rah-rah guy, but he would get me by the face mask and make eye contact with me. And I remember him saying, "Okay, McGraw, big-time players make big-time plays at big times. Period." That was it. Big-time players make big-time plays at big times. And that was his challenge to me. And he said it a lot, and I've never forgotten it. And I passed it on to my boys. Big-time players make big-time plays at big times. You got a star in your own life. If you're not a big-time player in your life, who is? Be a big-time player in your life. Make big-time plays at big times. You think, hey, I'm a postman. What is it I'm supposed to do that's a big-time play? Your life is your life. You're not a postman. That's something you do. You're a person. You have a family. You're in your life. You create opportunities. Decide what matters to you and your family. Is it money? Is it core values? Is it spiritual? Is it having security? Is it giving back to others? Is it how you are an American? What is it? Decide those things. But we are in a meritocracy here. I don't care what they've been trying to sell you. They might have been trying to sell you that this is all about equal outcome. No, it's not. That's a fantasy. That's a myth. It's not about equal outcome. We may be striving for equal opportunity, which we don't have either, but should work towards. But we live in a meritocracy. And you are in business for yourself. You are a company of one. And you are the manager of your life. How are you doing? You have one client, it's you. How are you doing? Are you creating opportunities for yourself? Are you being assertive? Now, there's a difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. Assertiveness is when you pursue your rights, but not necessarily at someone else's expense. Aggressiveness is when you pursue your rights and you walk all over somebody else's rights to get them. Big difference. Assertiveness is you protect your rights, pursue your rights, chase your dreams without stepping on everybody else to do it. I challenge you to be assertive, not to be aggressive. And to do this, you have to be honest with yourself. Look, you can't take excuses from yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You don't blow smoke at yourself and con yourself into doing something you shouldn't be doing or not doing something you should be doing. One thing I know about winners is they tell themselves the truth. They recognize problems the second they present themselves. The best example I've seen of that is Captain Sullenberger. Remember who that is? He's the guy that was flying the airplane out of New York when they had a bird strike and lost both engines and landed in the river. I'll tell you, as someone that's been a pilot since I was a teenager and has investigated airline crashes for a number of airlines across a number of years, that man, his crew, and all of his passengers are alive, in my opinion, for one reason and one reason only, is he was honest with himself about his situation at the first possible opportunity. Had he been in denial, had he frozen, had he panicked, had he not admitted to consciousness what his situation and circumstance was at his first opportunity, he and everyone on that airplane would be dead. But because he admitted it to consciousness, didn't waste time in denial, and took action without delay, he was able to get that plane in the best possible configuration and safest landing zone to give those people a chance to live. And it's because he was honest with himself. And the honest situation was, we're in a lot of trouble here. There's nobody can help us but me. I'm the pilot in command, and this all on me. I got to do this, and I got to do it right now. He was honest with himself. And if you're a rational thinker, you admit things to consciousness, and then you test them for rationality. If you're telling yourself something or somebody else is telling you something, you ask yourself 4 questions. 1 is, what's being said based on fact? Is it empirical? Can I verify it? The second question is this in my best interest? Does this get me what I want? Does this protect and prolong my life? And if the answer to any of those 4 questions is no, it's not a rational thought. Is this based on empirical fact? Is it in my best interest? Does it get me what I want? Does it protect and prolong my life? Answer comes up no to any one of them, you need to reject it and generate something that is rational. And like the other questions I was mentioning to you, I'm going to write those down and I'll have them on Dr. Phil Podcast website, and you can go back and look at them. If you do what I'm talking about and you are laser focused, you will be really proud of how efficient you can be at doing the things I'm asking you to do, because you have more time, you're more cognitively efficient, you're not multitasking, you're really putting things on a timeline, you're doing all the stuff that you need to do. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about is we are living in a meritocracy. You heard me say that. It's a fancy word for saying you eat what you kill, right? You eat what you kill in this life. If you're competing, you think, well, am I really one of those people that can truly get ahead? Am I one of those people that can really, really get ahead? Well, let me tell you something. There's some interesting research that's been done about organizations. Let me just use your career as an example. And listen, what you want, you may not have anything to do with a career. We could talk about your spiritual life. We could talk about a lot of things. I'm just using your career as an example. But for those people that do what I'm asking you to consider, which is live with intention, do what you do on purpose, be who you are on purpose, live with intention, own what you do, and move in vectors, move with intention. You have such a leg up on the rest of the world. You've probably heard me say, winners do things losers don't want to do. Hearing what I'm telling you here and doing what I'm telling you here gives you an edge over the rest of the world. It's almost an unfair fight. And we're just getting started. Oh, we're just getting started. I got a lot of stuff I'm going to be sharing with you going forward. But let me tell you some things that I want you to know. There is research that has been done that 65% of department heads in organizations have a negative net effect on the organization. Now think about that. I don't care if we're talking about the biggest bank on Wall Street or Target down on the corner or the grocery store in your neighborhood or the hospital you go to. 65% of department heads have a net negative effect on the organization, meaning the organization would be better without them. So you have a target-rich environment. It's not like, hey, got a bunch of killers locked in here. There's nowhere for me to crack the organization. 6.5 out of 10 of the people that are running the organizations that you work for are killing the organization. They should be replaced. They are vulnerable. You can learn the things we're talking about here and become part of the 35%. You have somewhere to go. You have a track to run on. And let me tell you another fact. 50% of the work is done by the square root of how many people work in that organization. Now, if you, like me, are not very good at math, let me tell you what that means. The square root of 10,000 is what? 100. So if you've got a giant organization that has 10,000 people working there, 50% of the work is done by 100 people. Let that sink in. If you've got an organization of 10,000 people, 50% of the work is done by 100 people. How much dead weight is that? You have a track to run on. You have somewhere to go. And what's it take for you to be someone that can become highly upwardly mobile? You have to be self-aware. You have to be who you are on purpose, and you have to own it. You have to be willing to go the extra mile. Winners do things losers don't want to do. The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. In the real world, work comes before success. You have to identify what you're good at and really develop in that area. And then you got to be willing to put in the work. And to do that, it's something we're going to talk about the next time we get together, and that's consequential knowledge. But before we get to that, you need to know how to set a goal. Now, I've hinted at this along the way, but to set a goal, it's got to be measurable. You have to decide, I want to up my production 10%, 20%. I want to get another credential. And maybe it's not a 4-year degree. Maybe it's to get an accreditation in coding or programming, or you want to go from being a plumber to a master plumber, or whatever. It doesn't matter. If that's your goal, that you want to get to a next level of accreditation, whatever your goal might be, you need to set a goal that's measurable. Then you need to identify, okay, what are the steps that I have to take to get to that goal? You don't have to leap tall buildings in a single bound. You don't have to jump all the way across the river. You need to say, what are the stepping stones to get there? And all this has to be written down. What's the first step to get from where I am to where I want to be? Well, maybe it's finding out if it's an accreditation thing. Maybe it's finding out, well, what's available? What could I do to make myself worth more? And so your goal is, before the end of next week, to research all of the things that are valued in your company. Then your next step would be, what is required for each of these and which one fits my skill set the best. Like for me, if one of them involved a whole lot of fancy math, I'd be looking for something else. I'm not real good at math, so I'd be looking for something that had to do with qualitative skills, like things that used words instead of math and symbols, things like that. And then it might be to identify, when are the courses offered? Can I take them online? When are the start dates? What's the cost involved? Finding out all of those things, then picking a start date until you get to the end goal of having it in your hand. And what are you going to do with it? And you need to set this against a timeline, because the difference between a dream and a goal is a timeline and accountability. A dream is, oh, someday I'm going to get this done. Well, someday's not a day of the week. I've checked my calendar. It's got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but some days it's not on there. So you've got to have a timeline, and then you've got to have accountability, a friend, a coworker, a family member that you have to look in the eye every Friday at the end of the week and say, here's what I got done this week. And you need to give them license to not take excuses or reasons. Reasons are just excuses. You don't want that. You want to show up and say, yep, got it done. Here it is. Set a goal, not a dream. Measurable goal, identifiable steps against a timeline with accountability. Then you will start to move. Then you will start to move the needle. When you decide, I'm going to be who I am on purpose, you need to make a threshold decision that you're worth it. That whatever you do, you're worth it. And if you have people that are relying on you, that you're going to make them proud. That they've hooked their wagon to a star. They've hooked their wagon to a star. What kind of star? The person that's going to star in their own life. And what we're going to talk about next time is something called consequential knowledge. I'm going to define it for you. It's probably not what you think it is, but I'm going to define it for you. I'm going to tell you how to develop it, nurture it, and monetize it. If your goal is not career-oriented, I'm going to tell you how to develop it in whatever arena you want your life to be in. Now, I've asked you to love my thinking for 15 minutes, and I've held you for about an hour, and I hope you're still loving it. When you own who you are, and you really believe in that, there's a certain degree of peace that comes with it. And look, you're not going to please all the people all the time. And I don't care what you do. There's going to be somebody standing around to throw rocks at you. And since there's going to always be somebody that's willing to criticize you and what you're doing, you might as well do what you want to do. I'd rather have rocks thrown at me for what I want to do than have rocks thrown at me for what somebody else wants me to do. But my point is, this life can be exciting. You can be exciting. And what you do can be exciting. I just want to give you an edge over the rest of the world because you're going to earn it. Nobody gets a free ride. You're going to put in the time, you're going to put in the effort, and you're going to reap the benefit. And I can't wait to tell you the rest of the story. I'll see you next time.